Hi, Chris Duff over at Serious Land Capital, vacant land funding partner. Today, another very timely and recent update on market and how we're approaching at least one of our properties. I know I recorded a few days ago about a smaller purchase, basically right at our minimum purchase price of roughly 20 grand that we anticipated selling in downside scenario for at least a double, though possibly could sell for a triple based on where we're anticipating the initial list price. Perk test came back all solid, really no key issues regarding property characteristics, nice flat land. It's a little bit of a slower market, but in terms of characteristics in relation to where that property is, no real problems. We had looked at this one over a couple months ago. It's just that the closing's been delayed. The title company had to drive like 3 hours each way to go to tracked out, some records that were only available in print, which added some extra time to process here. So I know I was remarking again that, hey, just based on the market, the way it's going, even on a daily basis, we may have to consider adjusting terms, backing out of certain deals based on up-to-date information. We don't make any final decisions until the wire is out the door. So I had called the presumed broker for this particular property today and just checking, hey, since last time we spoke, especially post-trade war, like how is activity looking, and can we, recomp out the area to see, are things still in line with what we're kind of thinking. Again, you can really only use pending comps at the moment, or maybe offers that are coming in, verbal or otherwise, whether they're accepted or not, because that's going to be the most critical info here, because, true sold comps post-trade war of early, April won't be available until mid to late May, as I've remarked prior. So, I wanted to get a little bit more on the ground info. And this broker, even with all that context in mind, he's like, hey, this particular area has been the busiest they've ever seen in at least 2 or 3 years. No signs of slowdown. So, and he was like, even since we talked probably early March, perhaps, he's like, yeah, I think we could list potentially even higher for this particular property, try for just shy of 60K. And should hit our, minimum target of 40, no problem. But, you never know until a property is actually listed. Things can always change. We've learned many times over that you can't count your chickens before they hatch. We just do the best we can in terms of risk management and high-level calculation for what are worthwhile gambles when it comes to purchasing properties and funding them accordingly, especially in markets like this. So that was a good sign. I grilled him in more depth, like just, okay, can you put together those comps here? We're anticipating closing on Friday. Can you show me which ones, what they're looking like? And he followed up right away. It's like, yeah, I would feel very confident still at, 10K per acre. That's where a couple of comps pended recently that were of comparable characteristics, and the property that we're buying is like just shy of 6-ish acres, so that would line up to roughly that 59K list price to go after. Though of course I was asking, okay, those properties that pended, when were they? Was that prior to beginning of April? Because that's really the cutoff, right, when things really started getting worse in the market. And he's like, yeah, they were listed early Feb, pended mid-March, which is a really great turnaround time, obviously, but still it's, I would have been more certain or more confident even if they had pended within the month of April. So it's like, okay, it's still good, but, and following up a bit further again, but you're saying you're still getting a ton of calls. site visits, even offers coming in. The broker's like, yes, all of the above for that, still very active. So with all of that in mind, especially being like a relatively lower price property, we're like, okay, let's still go ahead with this one. It's about as de-risked as you can be in this market, especially from a capital standpoint, and still seems to have solid margin. Broker is very close to the property in terms of geographic location where he's at, so it's not like this is kind of a newer area for him, and has had a lot of success in the area. So it's like, all right, we've aligned ourselves as well as we can here. I hate throwing more money out right now as we're waiting for some of these other larger properties to come back, but it makes sense. Let's go ahead and close this baby out. So that's how we're proceeding there. But, again, hopefully based on the pod I did a few days ago in terms of, how we're approaching last minute updates, do we have to adjust terms? Do we back out of deals? Like, this now gives you a tactical example of how exactly we handled checking in with last minute up-to-date diligence and what are the key questions to ask in relation to assessing the market when the macro has changed so significantly over the last couple weeks here, and how you have to orient your questioning. What's actually relevant for your DD when it comes to pending comps? What is that like on the ground knowledge and activity being amongst realtors and so forth in the area, and how confident are you like in relation to laying out a lot of capital for certain deals here? So for us, like 20K is barely noticeable for us in terms of our total pile and what how it can affect our bottom line, but still have to be smart about it. Whereas for other people, it's like 20K would be on the higher end for properties that they purchase. It's all relative in regard to that. But hopefully this is helpful in that regard. We did get some good news about that larger Texas property, the near $1 million sale is, I hate to jinx anything, not that I believe in jinxes, but excuse the phrasing, but checking with that broker, he's been in touch with the buyers even today and last week, and they are moving full steam ahead, aware of all the macro factors. They still think the numbers look very solid. We should know even this Thursday whether things are like fully going to line up with the county, and they're already like friends with most of the decision makers on the county. They have not encountered any red flags just yet. I've been even signing other seller related docs today. Hopefully we could close this one out sooner. I would be sighing a huge breath of relief if we could get that one out and recapitalize, be feeling a lot more stabilized and secure within the business. And then we can kind of, all right, take a deep breath, be ready for whatever the market kind of brings, and reset our underwriting criteria accordingly, which is what we've already been doing regardless. So more to come on that. I hope I have more good news to report on that end here shortly. With that, seriousland.capital for any of your funding needs, land daily diligence, Facebook group for zero cost review land deals. Just got off a session doing that just now. 3 pretty interesting deals. Possible subdivide opportunity was way too risky in this particular environment. That's probably a case study for another time. A lot of red flags on that one. And then landpricer.ai, I'm going to be reporting on that one more as well. I was meeting with my CTO earlier today and have an excellent path forward for really sharpening up the user input process to reduce the user input probably by like 85+%, and just knock down the time spent on reviews significantly just by using AI models. So that was the whole point from the start. Now the tech is really caught up to what we need and what our users need, what our company needs. So more to come on that. With that, subscribe and share. Would really appreciate a review on Spotify or whatever platform you're on. That only helps us grow and get the word out even more. See you tomorrow. Take care. Bye.